Welcome back, everybody. I'm going to do a quick video. I wanted to do an update, show you some recent mail that I picked up, but over the weekend I actually had the privilege of going out to Los Angeles to visit one of my nephews who's attending college out there, and actually we did a few cool things, and I have some pictures to be able to share with you. As you can see, we actually went over to Dodger Stadium, so I have some pictures from the tour there that I wanted to kind of share with you in case anyone's ever interested in heading out to Los Angeles to see the tour itself. And actually, we went to a Lakers game too, so that was a lot of fun. But just real brief mail pickups. Leading into right before vacation, I had a few things come. The first one I shared in a short last week, but got my second Leaf card, but my first Hall of Fame Leaf card. This actually card was on my list of items I wanted to be able to try and pick up this year, and yeah, prices are coming down. I got it at a price, an auction that I thought was reasonable and far below what I've been seeing it sell for, like card shows or even buy it now offers. This is a PSA 3 of the Luke Appling card from the 48 or 49 Leaf set, whichever one you kind of ascribe to. And I'm pretty happy with it. It's an older PSA case. It's got a lot of wax stain on the front, so you can see why it didn't get a higher grade, but the centering is not terrible for a Leaf card, which is like one of the big issues, I think, for those cards. And sometimes the image gets a little bit blurred with the way that they kind of did the printing of the cards. That's got a little bit of that issue, so a little bit of a registration issue as far as having on his face, but the further you pull it back, the more clear his face is. And here's the back of the card, just a little bit of edge wear on the corners, but still very legible. Again, you can see a little bit of a wax stain right above holds down here. We can see like it got exposed to the wax or the gum, whatever it might have been from that time. But really happy to pick up the Luke Appling card. This is one of his 3 cards from playing day cards after the end of World War II, in which he did serve. He's got 2 others, one being 1950 Bowman, the other one being 49 Bowman. So at some point I want to pick up the 49 Bowman and maybe go back into the 30s and see if I can get a few of his cards to kind of round out that collection. This is a player that I do kind of collect from the vintage era for White Sox players. Then I was able to pick up in the same transaction and auction. I was actually able to get the first card from the 1948 Bowman set. So Bob Elliott was the 1947 league MVP, playing third base for the Boston Braves. At this point, had a pretty good career overall. I think his WAR was somewhere around 50, which is pretty good for any player, but obviously definitely for him because he won an MVP and was in consideration for many all-star teams that he was able to play for while his time in Boston. So I'm pretty happy to be able to kind of knock that one off the list. Brings it down to 17 more cards I need for the set. Hoping that I have one arriving possibly in today's mail. At least it's supposed to come. So I'll have something to share with you guys. Later this week, I'll probably put that video together because it's a pretty special one. So without further ado, just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the trip. So the first thing we did was actually, I'm going to be sharing my screen here in a minute. We went to the Los Angeles Lakers game. So we picked this game in particular because my Chicago Bulls were actually playing them. So it was hard to take some pictures at the stadium because it was really kind of dark outside. So my camera had a hard time on the phone picking up kind of all the things we were seeing. And inside the stadium itself, it was a little bit hazy, probably from a lot of the fog that they use for some of the introductions and things like that for either the hockey games or obviously the basketball games. And I'm sure it's a pretty busy arena this time of year because they also host the Clippers as well and any concerts that may happen. So I'm sure it's always busy. It probably has a lot of like the smoke to kind of go with the performances when they do introductions. But this is where our seats were, which actually was closer than I thought they might be, considering we were in like the second to last row. But the way the stadium was designed, the last seats are actually pretty good seats. We were able to see the game, and LeBron James was playing, and so was AD. So we were able to see the 2 stars of the Lakers play against the Bulls. The Bulls, Zach LaVine was out, but the rest of the players were eligible and were playing. And obviously, Ball has been out forever for the Bulls, but it was a high-scoring game. They scored like over 270 points. So, and my nephew is a big basketball fan, so he just had a great time watching LeBron James. It was the first time he had an opportunity to see him in person, and it was for me as well. So, and then the next day we actually went over to Dodger Stadium. So let me kind of pull up those pictures here. And the first thing we did, as we kind of walked down to the plaza where they're actually doing the stadium tour, and we were able to go into the gift shop, which is like the first thing they have you kind of go into over by the gates where the tour starts. And it was just flooded with Otani stuff. So they waited no time at all trying to be able to market on him. And this was the only thing that wasn't on sale in the gift shop. We got like a 10% discount for going on the tour, but you couldn't do that for any of the Otani goods. There's a few more Otani items that you can kind of see here as well. And it was a very clean and orderly gift shop. They didn't really have retired players much featured there, so those are going to be unlike like I've seen those in other gift shops or other stadiums where you kind of see some of the retired players. In this one, they didn't have them, and I kind of asked and said like the families of the players are very kind of protective of the marketing of them, and it's probably have to go to the secondary market, such as like Mitchell and Ness or something like that, to be able to pick up those things. You couldn't get them at the stadium, which was fine with me. This was actually the item that I picked up. Was this Brooklyn T-shirt? I was trying to find a Brooklyn Dodgers hat, but they didn't have those in there, which was kind of surprising. They didn't have it. And then I also got a Dodger dog here, which I thought these were pretty funny. So got a stuffed animal of a Dodger dog, which I thought was hilarious when I had a chance to see it. So I'm like, okay, I'm picking that up. I did forget to show you one item when I was at the Lakers game, so I'll pull this down just for a second. And actually, we're handing out pins at the stadium itself. These are pretty cool. This is celebrating the 2000s, so obviously the teams that were winning championships throughout the 2000s, which was obviously during the peak of the Kobe Shaq era, and they also also captured Paul Gasol towards the end of that era, just because he was winning championships with Kobe when Kobe picked up to 24 and changed his jersey from 8 to 24. So we thought those were pretty cool handouts. We didn't even know they were giving something away when we went to the game. All right, so back to the tour itself. So again, there's the Dodger dogs. So this was the plaza where we kind of walked into, and they had all the retired number players. And what was kind of cool about this is they had a little description of the player as well, written on the numbers on the sides, and they had it both in English and in Spanish, which I thought was pretty cool. So here's obviously Sandy Koufax's number. We entered in the gate, and by the washroom they had a list of like all their all-stars and like how many players have been on the all-star team over their history. You can see like I picked the pictures of the catchers and the first baseman, which obviously has two Hall of Famers listed on there, but it goes all the way back to like the early 30s when they had the first all-star games. You can see like Al Lopez was kind of listed on there, all the way up to most recently where we had like Freddie Freeman as an all-star that was kind of listed as well. All right, there's a picture of me with my White Sox hat on there in front of the stadium. So you enter in all the way at the top of the third deck. And I didn't know this, and it's probably will be old hat for everybody that's been to Dodger Stadium or has had a chance to learn about the stadium. It was actually built into the mountain. So we actually were at ground level. So we had to kind of walk down further, and ground level just got lower because we were kind of walking down the side of a mountain as the way the stadium was constructed, which I didn't know. So it was pretty cool getting a chance to take that picture there. So let me get my mug off the screen there. So they took us down into the second level, which was actually where you can enter into the broadcast booth, but it was also where you kind of would eventually lead you into the next level down would actually take you down into where like the locker rooms are at. So throughout this level, they had a lot of different awards that the Dodgers would pick up throughout their history, mostly Los Angeles, but not exclusively. And they took us into the Vin Scully booth. Throughout the tour, they were asking us a lot of trivia questions about the Dodgers just to kind of see if what the audience knew. We had a group of obviously I was there with my wife and my nephew, and then we had a group from Korea who's actually going to be at the Dodger game when it starts. The season starts later on in March. So they were here doing the tour. And then we had one other couple that was from Australia too. So I think we may have been the only, as far as local being Americans, that were kind of on the tour. And I just had fun answering kind of the majority of the questions that were kind of being asked throughout the tour. So that was kind of fun, kind of sitting in the broadcast booth there. Then we like walked out of the broadcast booth and into like sort of where you let out to the elevators that would take you down to where the locker rooms are at. And I talked a little bit more about this history, kind of starting in Brooklyn, and here's the different caps that the Dodgers were known to wear throughout their history while in Brooklyn, and then obviously on into Los Angeles. And there was little stories about some of the changes that they did over the years with those baseball caps. You saw a seat from Ebbets Field. You can see that listed there. That's below. And they talk a little bit about the 55 World Series, being that the one World Series they won in Brooklyn. what was kind of interesting for me was hearing the narrative from the Los Angeles perspective of the move west, where it was celebrated. I think that for them, people that are local to the area, it was one of the greatest things that ever happened in their sports history. I'm more familiar with the narrative of them leaving Brooklyn and the Giants leaving New York as well at that time. It just like the gap is sort of left in baseball in that area after a period of like decadence from like the 30s and 40s and 50s, where championships were being won by a New York team left and right, and actually further back when you include the championships from the Giants. You saw like what a locker would have looked like. These are kind of the old lockers that they had in some of the locker rooms, and they had one kind of set up with Sandy Koufax's stuff here in the middle there. I think it here, actually, this was Sandy Koufax's in the middle. It was some of the more recent players that played in the 70s, 80s, up into the modern players before they actually redid the locker rooms for the players. So I thought that was kind of fun seeing that stuff. The old bullpen cart was also in that area as well as some seats from the old stadium or from the current stadium before they kind of upgraded their seats. And then obviously they talked a little bit more about the retired players too, and how they're the retired like jerseys of the retired players kind of listed there in that area as well. And as we were then we moved down to the level where they actually had the locker rooms. We actually didn't take us near the visiting players' locker rooms, but they did take us near where the Dodger players were at. And you could see all their trophies just lining the walls as you kind of led from the elevator shaft all the way to the actual locker room, which is cool. And so here's like the gold gloves, MVP awards. There's a lot more of them there. I just took like a brief picture of a few. I thought this one was fun because he had Jackie, Campy, and Campy again kind of listed in the same area. The 3 World Series trophies that they've won, as well as the bats they would win for winning World Series previous to that time. And then they talked about the Cy Young Awards. This is our tour guide, Mike. He was a lot of fun, very knowledgeable. It was a lot of fun to interact with him throughout the tour, especially if you're a baseball fan. And kind of mentioned, I didn't know this at the time, that the Dodgers have won more Cy Young Awards than any other organization. And then we got to go down to the field. We couldn't walk on the field itself, but we could go to the visitors' dugouts. This is the visitors' dugout. And here's a picture back of the stands from the dugout itself. So they discouraged us from doing videos a bit because they wanted people to be able to look who not see the entirety of the tour on YouTube. So I kind of respected that, but they said we could take as many pictures as we wanted. So hopefully this was an opportunity for you, some of you to kind of see the insides of the Dodger Stadium and maybe interested in kind of taking a tour yourself if you have an opportunity to kind of get out to the stadium. I still want to get out there to see an actual game. So that's still on the list of things to do. But it was a lot of fun just being able to go to the stadium itself and having those tours, because not every stadium offers those things. For example, when I was just in Minneapolis this past spring, there wasn't a tour offered of Target Field. I just had to kind of do my own self-guided tour around the stadium and in through the gift shop, and that's all you got to do unless you were there on game day and got to do a little bit more. So that's all for now, guys. I hope you enjoyed it and hope you enjoyed the pickups as well, and have a great rest of your day.